Session of the Board of Lane County Commissioners regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 26, 2024. We do have a public works item, our item number 8, 2025. Did I say 2024? Living in the past. Thank you, Vice Chair. It's 2025 for those that are still writing checks in correctly. We have an open public hearing. As I said before, today is August 26, 2025, and I'm going to open a public hearing on ordinance 2506. And we're going to do things we have a little more compliance things we need to do today, so bear with me. There's a couple different steps on this process. Is there a request from any commissioner to read the ordinance in full? If not, I'll read the introduction by title only. Seeing none, I'll read it by title. The title is Ordinance Number 2506 in the matter of amending Lane Code, Chapter 9, Section 090, Chapter 11, Section 016, Chapter 15, Section 005.010, and Sections 500.020-050. Lane County 9.090, Lane County 11.016, LC rather, 15.005.10.010, LC 15.500.020-050, and declaring an emergency. And in this case, there's also an accompanying order that is also to amend the lane manual, namely order number 25081217 in the matter of amending Lane Manual Chapter 9, Section 030, LM 9.030. The ordinance before us is a proposal to amend Lane Code Chapter 9, 11, and Chapters 15 that was initiated by the Land Management Division to comply with the Department of Environmental Quality Willamette Basin Mercury Total Maximum Daily Load Requirements, the TMDL. The order of proceedings for this hearing will first be a report by our staff, and then followed by public testimony, and then any additional comments by staff. So we need to disclose conflicts of interest. So all commissioners are required at this time to disclose any potential or actual conflicts of interest they have with the proposal before us. This means that if a commissioner or one of their relatives could be financially impacted, positively or negatively, by the proposal, it should be disclosed for the record, followed by a statement that the commissioner can or cannot proceed. If there is an actual conflict, that must be disclosed on the record, and then the conflicted commissioner must recuse themselves until the public hearing is concluded. Now, I'll ask each commissioner to disclose any conflicts. I'll start with Vice Chair Senega.
None.
Commissioner Buck.
None.
Commissioner Trieger.
None.
Commissioner Farr.
I have none, thank you.
And Commissioner Lovell has none as well. Now I'll ask for the challenges to any commissioner's ability to participate in the public hearing. If anyone wishes to challenge a commissioner for conflict of interest, the challenger should explain the basis for the challenges. The commissioner challenged will have an opportunity to respond and state whether they're able to proceed without any actual conflicts of interest. Does any member of the public wish to challenge any commissioner's ability to participate in this public hearing? Seeing none, I will hand the presentation over to staff. With us, we have Ms. Lorna Janeski, their stormwater permitting specialist, and Maria Papagallo, our environmental engineer supervisor. And in the wings, in case we need technical expertise, is Rachel Surslev, our senior planner. So please, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. My name is Maria Papagallo, and I'm the environmental engineering supervisor, and it's my group's responsibility in engineering and construction services to organize compliance with the permits that Lorena is going to be discussing today. Lorena is in Land Management Division, and she is our stormwater permitting specialist, and she's going to be providing most of the report today.
Hello, everybody, and thank you. Thanks for letting us be here. Today, we're here to talk, this is for the second reading of the county's proposed erosion prevention regulations, which are needed to meet the water quality management requirements of the final revised Willamette Basin Mercury Total Maximum Daily Load. And we can call that Mercury TMDL, or TMDL for short. This Mercury TMDL is a set of federal requirements that is administered by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ for short. When we came before the board last year and in our work session back in April of this year, the board's direction was to adopt the minimal amount of regulations that are needed to meet the minimum requirements of the Mercury TMDL. Staff are following the direction from the board and are proposing a Mercury TMDL code and program that are designed to minimally be impactful to development. Our smaller jurisdictions like ourselves, other smaller jurisdictions around Oregon are also in this same process of adopting their own Mercury TMDL, or around the Willamette River Basin are adopting Mercury TMDL programs as well. Our first reading for the new requirements was 2 weeks ago on August 12th, and then the work session where we introduced it was back on the 29th. And in this presentation now, we'll include some information about the county's existing erosion prevention program and about erosion prevention itself, so that we have some context as we talk about the new measures that we need to adopt. So, what are we proposing to adopt? To meet the Mercury TMDL water quality management requirements, we must adopt changes to the existing Chapter 9 Erosion Prevention Code. We will also need to make a small change to Chapter 11, the Building Code chapter, and then also to Lane Manual. I want to highlight one small change that has happened since our April work session. We have added to the scope of the proposal language to meet requirements for work done in the right-of-way by private parties. This impacts our existing facility permits process. That requires some minor changes to Chapter 15, which is also listed there. The language we've added to the facility permit process supports the Mercury TMDL requirements within the TMDL area, and it will also involve extending the previously adopted municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4 for short, requirements, will extend those those requirement thresholds to the right-of-way facility permit process as well. Staff had originally planned to address the right-of-way issue separately, but we realized as we were going through this process that it would be much easier if we added the facility permit language into this proposal rather than trying to do it through a whole separate process later. So here's a little bit of background. The Mercury TMDL requirements that we need to adopt now are different from the MS4 erosion prevention requirements we worked with the board on back in 2023 and adopted in 2024. Those MS4 requirements have been in place for a little over a year now, and things are going well. And those requirements will remain in place as we look to adopt the TMDL requirements. The permitting requirements for properties in the MS4, those requirements are not changing. Both the Mercury TMDL and the MS4 permits are part of the federal National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES for short, as part of those NPDES requirements that the county needs to adopt to protect natural resources and waters of the state from pollution. But each permit, the MS4 permit and the TMDL permit, it's its own separate thing. They have different requirements, but they do speak to each other in similar language and similar sets of requirements. The county has to adopt ordinance language to meet the requirements of each of them, the MS4 and the TMDL. We have to report on each of them separately to DEQ, and then DEQ in turn has to report to the Environmental Protection Agency. The TMDL code language we're proposing now is in addition to the existing MS4 code language and will be added into the existing code, that Chapter 9 code. As a result, as you look at the legal version of the proposed code language, you might see a lot of red lines, but that's because we had to move things around to accommodate the new language into the structure of the existing code. So most of it is structural, organizational changes. Next. As previously directed by the board, last year and at the April work session, staff is proposing to adopt a minimal amount of regulations needed to meet the minimum requirements of the Mercury TMDL. Staff has consulted with DEQ on this proposal as well, and we have received DEQ's tentative approval, but of course that is pending their full review in our next reporting cycle. Now, the Mercury TMDL, what is it? The Mercury TMDL is a study of mercury pollutants in the Willamette River Basin. Willamette has been identified by the Environmental Protection Agency as a water quality impaired waterway. High levels of mercury in the river basin threaten habitat and fish health. Mercury is found in the soil due to just natural levels, but also due to deposition from human activities. It's a large factor in the amount of mercury in the soils. And one of the main ways that mercury enters the river system is by soil disturbance. So disturbed soils, such as during construction, can be easily carried by rainwater into waterways. Since construction sites often have exposed soils and construction materials and chemicals, the Mercury TMDL has water quality management requirements that require that measures be taken at construction sites to reduce the pollution of mercury and construction wastes into our waterways. The water quality management requirements in the Mercury TMDL are designed to control and reduce the levels of mercury in the Willamette River Basin. And since basin residents like to swim in the rivers and streams and fish and eat the fish they catch, the high mercury levels are also a threat to the health and safety of people living here in the county. The Mercury TMDL requirements are meant to protect those waterways and natural resources that we all know are a good reason, a wonderful reason to live and work and play in Lane County. Because the Mercury TMDL requirements are in addition to the county's existing MS4 requirements, the erosion prevention requirements for a particular site will depend on its location. The existing MS4 areas, those bright green areas on the map on the left, those are around the urban growth boundaries of Eugene and Springfield. That's the MS4 areas that we adopted code for last year. Those areas will remain. And the Mercury TMDL area will cover the remaining county portions of the Willamette River Basin. So the map to the far right shows the entire Willamette Basin, and then the map at the bottom is the white areas are our portion of the Willamette River Basin. And that portion of the Willamette River Basin in Lane County, it covers 76% of our county. The Mercury TMDL, it does include a deadline for adoption of the erosion prevention requirements. This slide shows just the cover sheet from the TMDL document. The deadline that's listed in the Mercury TMDL is September 3rd, 2025. So staff is requesting an emergency implementation of the new ordinance and order. Keeping in line with the board's previous direction to adopt only the minimums, we are proposing that the county's measures be adopted only within the Willamette River Basin and not within the entire county. So these next couple slides talk about the regulations that the Mercury TMDL requires the county to adopt. The Mercury TMDL requirements aren't as specific as the MS4 permit requirements were. For example, the MS4 permit, it lists specific amounts of disturbance that trigger the need for an erosion permit submittal and review. But the Mercury TMDL requirements are not so precise. The TMDL notes, and then this is a quote from the TMDL itself. The TMDL says that counties must incorporate erosion control requirements into county building and grading permit applications. Permit language must require erosion, sediment, and waste material management controls be used and maintained at construction sites from initial clearing through final stabilization. So the TMDL does not require that we adopt an erosion prevention permit program like the MS4 permit did, but it does require that we require disturbances to use erosion measures throughout the course of their construction. The Mercury TMDL also requires that we adopt an ordinance, that we provide technical assistance and establish an education program about erosion prevention, and that we establish an enforcement program. The requirement for an education program nicely aligns with the board's desire for an Education First program. And please note that the enforcement program is only meant as a last step to be used only if compliance cannot be achieved through other communications and education. So those are the basics about what the Mercury TMDL requires. And then in these next few slides, I'll present how we propose to meet those minimum requirements. Our approach is designed to minimize efforts for the customer and to fold into the existing development permit submittal process that we already have, since we do not need to develop a whole new permit submittal process for the TMDL area. Firstly, just to reiterate, no changes are proposed to the substance of the existing MS4 code. You'll see a lot of formatting changes that were done to incorporate the new TMDL language into the structure. Also, the erosion prevention programs in the Eugene and Springfield urban growth boundaries, those will remain the same. Those cities will continue to administer erosion prevention code for their urban growth boundaries. So on to how we are meeting the minimal requirements of the Mercury TMDL. I put stars next to our minimum requirement proposals. First, the program will only be within the Willamette River Basin. And that said, I should note that the DEQ has said that an additional TMDL is in the works for the mid-coast basin, which includes the Siuslaw. That is probably a few years out. So at that time, when they do adopt that TMDL, practically all of the Lane County lands will be covered by one TMDL or another. But in the meantime, we just have the Mercury TMDL that we're proposing to adopt within the Willamette Basin. The inclusion of work in the right-of-way has been added since our work session, but it is also a requirement of the TMDL, so we're trying to meet that as easily as possible by incorporating it here. Another primary feature of our Mercury TMDL proposal is that we are proposing to not adopt a permitting requirement, since we are not required to have a permit requirement per the TMDL. We're not going to do so. To meet the minimum requirement, and this is another quote from the TMDL, I'll read it here. To meet the minimum requirement that erosion, sediment, and waste material management controls be used and maintained at construction sites, staff is proposing to expand the erosion prevention outcomes from the MS4 code into the TMDL area. These erosion prevention outcomes were adopted with the MS4 code last year. And outcomes are basically positive parameters that a land disturbing project needs to meet during the course of construction. The outcomes work to protect waterways, adjacent properties, rights-of-way, natural habitats. Outcomes are met by using best management practices, called BMPs for short, to prevent and control erosion and pollution that could be coming from construction sites. This next slide has a few examples of some BMPs or some conditions that may need some BMPs. Sites will often need to install BMPs to make sure that sloughing soils and sediment-laden runoff do not damage an adjacent road or its ditch or a neighbor's property. Silt fences, wattles, straw and straw bales, and natural undisturbed areas of vegetation, which are called buffer strips, are all BMPs that can be used to achieve this outcome. Construction entrances and construction site good housekeeping practices can be used to ensure against tracking mud and dirt into roads, which is dangerous for motorists, especially motorcycle riders. Blankets and other ground cover can be used to stabilize a site once construction is complete, like in the picture on the upper right. And one of the nice things to note about the erosion prevention outcomes that we have adopted is that they do not dictate the exact BMP that needs to be used to achieve the positive outcome. For example, exposed soils could be covered with interwoven core blankets or straw, or a contractor could even use leaves that are already on a site to achieve the same outcome. Another example of outcome flexibility is that maybe in a more urban setting where developments are closer together, a contractor might need to use something more substantial like a silt fence, say along a property line to protect a neighbor. But if the property is, say, a larger rural site, they may be able to just use a field around their construction area as a vegetated buffer to achieve the same purpose. So under our outcome-based code, contractors will have choices for the materials and methods that they can use and that are best suited for their site. The need to meet outcomes is also a familiar way of structuring erosion prevention requirements in the larger area. The local area, Eugene and Springfield, already have outcome-based code language, and a number of our local contractors are already familiar with outcomes-based approach. Another of the minimal standards we're proposing to adopt for the Mercury TMDL program is to extend the use of the self-certification form into the Mercury TMDL area for properties. Staff currently uses the self-cert form just as it's an educational tool. When a development permit comes in, the form contains basic information about erosion prevention and alerts developers to the requirement that they need to meet the erosion prevention outcomes. Applicants sign the form, stating they understand the requirements and that they will use erosion prevention measures during construction. The form is submitted at intake time with a development permit, like a building permit, and it's used to just raise awareness because erosion prevention measures are new in the county. So it helps to educate our customers and to let them know of the new code language that's out there. Another minimally impactful way in which we are meeting the minimum standards is by placing a notification statement on building permit documents. This is a new thing that we're proposing. We don't do it currently, but this will be another way to reach out to our customers as they come in for a development permit, like a building permit, and it will provide additional notification that, hey, there's something new going on here. The statement will alert applicants for the need to use erosion prevention measures and meet the outcomes if they're disturbing the soil. Erosion prevention education and enforcement programs are another minimum requirement of the Mercury TMDL. The county has already established an enforcement program for illicit discharge and erosion prevention. The new TMDL code will reference that same language and will be managed with an education-first approach in line with the board's direction and the direction of the Mercury TMDL. Education and applicant assistance will also continue in the same fashion as for the existing MS4 program. We have many handouts and checklists already to help our customers. Staff will continue to help customers at the Customer Service Center. As we've gotten further into the MS4 program, I've been getting more and more inquiries and calls and questions, and so I'm there as a contact and point for people to contact. And we also provide on-site technical assistance to help customers in the field. I want to also note that we will also maintain the same emergency work language that was adopted with the MS4 program back in 2024. On to fees. Staff will need to adopt a minimal fee for self-certifications to support the erosion prevention program. Even though no permits are required, the county is still expected by the Mercury TMDL to monitor construction and ensure compliance with the erosion code. The Willamette Basin covers such a large area, 76% of the county, and staff is required to monitor development, monitor the program, track information for reporting, educate and assist developers and contractors, and perform project enforcement when necessary. So that's a lot of staff, time, and resources. So a small fee will be needed to cover all that work that the TMDL expects us to do. Staff is currently working with other land management staff to adopt a minimal amount fee. The ordinance and order, if they're adopted today, they will be in place prior to the adoption of the fee. So the code is written, the way we've written the code language about fees, we have not enumerated a specific fee amount. So the fee may follow the adoption of the code itself. So it will function a little bit as like a soft opening to the new requirements. I'm working with Keir Miller to get the fee adoption process finished. So in summary, we're looking at an erosion prevention program that will have multiple layers based upon where a site falls within the county. Thanks. The existing MS4 program, it will remain. The permitting requirements will not change, but as noted before, you'll see some reorganization of the code language itself. The Mercury TMDL requirements will build upon the already adopted MS4 requirements, extending out from the MS4 area to the boundary lines of the Willamette Basin. We will be creating a program that is navigable for customers and will be minimally impactful to both staff and customers. The Mercury TMDL program will be an outcomes-based code language, allowing flexibility in which erosion measures are used to meet the outcomes. And erosion prevention permit submittal and review will not be required for the TMDL area, but owners will need to employ erosion prevention and construction waste control measures during the course of their construction. We'll require that self-certification form, and the program and its compliance component will be managed with an education-first approach. Just to give you a little background about what we've been doing since we met with you in the work session. Following that work session in April, we completed the rough draft of the code and sent out copies to various stakeholders. Our outreach process included emails sent to stakeholders, including those that were that came to talk to us during the MS4 program adoption. We posted notices at the Customer Service Center and on the county website. There's lots of information about the process and erosion prevention on the county website. And then we offered outreach meetings to organizations around town. Staff did make some amendments and clarifications to the proposed code, the draft code, in response to the feedback that we have received. And since the Mercury TMDL requires that the ordinance be implemented by September 3rd of this year, staff has requested an emergency enactment so that the new ordinance and order may be applied immediately. We noted a little earlier, the fees are to follow soon through the formal fee adoption process, which will come before the boards for approval. And of course, now and after adoption, we will continue to assist our customers as they navigate through the new code requirements. Staff has strived to create a program and to write code language that is minimally impactful to our customers while still meeting those minimum requirements that we have to adopt because of the TMDL. But the new code will not just meet TMDL requirements. It will also work to protect our rivers and our streams from pollution, keep our roads safe from debris, protect properties from erosion and pollutants, and protect the health of Lane County residents and guests and wildlife who use our waterways and eat the fish in those waterways. Remember that the purpose of the Mercury TMDL is to control and reduce the level of toxic mercury in the Willamette River and its tributaries. This TMDL will help to protect those waterways, it's the properties within Lane County, and the resources of the county we love. We thank you for your attention today, and we welcome public comments and feedback from the board, and request approval of the ordinance and the order.
Great, thank you very much for recapping 2 full years of largely good information. Good job.
Thank you.
There is just a time for us commissioners to ask some clarifying questions. The debate will be after the public testimony. So if you have any clarifying questions, board, this is a good time to ask them now. Commissioner Farr?
Just a time check, Chair. We had 20 minutes allotted for this, and we're at already 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clarifying question from Commissioner Tree.
I'm sorry, I thought we had 30 and 30, so maybe I went over a little in my presentation. I apologize.
The fee coming later, will that be retroactive or?
No, it will not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there is any more clarifying questions, we'll move on to public testimony and invite public testimony on these proposed code amendments. And we'll start by anyone signed up in Harris Hall. Is anyone signed up in Harris Hall? I'm getting a no from our Harris Hall signer-upper. How about anything online, Jessica? Anybody online?
Thank you, Chair. For those joining us virtually, if you would like to give public comment during this public hearing, please raise your virtual hand now. I do not see any hands raised. Turn it back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. That will conclude the public testimony. It's staff, your opportunity for any final question, answers, comments before we close? Okay. Sounds good. Do any commissioners have questions for additional staff before we move on to deliberations? If not, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing. Oh, Commissioner Farr, excuse me, go ahead.
Thank you. Great presentation, and we needed as much time as you gave us, by the way, so.
It's a little tricky.
Well, yeah, it is. Just a quick question regarding the ordinance that we're looking to pass. I have 2 questions on that. One, you said minimal and minimally and minimum and a lot of times. But what I want to ascertain is we are meeting all DEQ requirements with this ordinance, right?
We believe that we are, but again, we will not know for sure until they do their formal review. But from our meeting with them prior to the work session, they approved our approach and said that they thought that it looked good.
Good. And we trusted DEQ to
Yes.
manage their purview, which is the environmental quality. Good. So while we are looking at minimal, minimally, minimum, et cetera, we are meeting all the requirements of the DEQ. And if we find out during the assessment that we are missing a little bit, then we'll adjust accordingly. Is that right?
Have to come back and see you.
We are going to meet DEQ requirements, period,
Yes.
by the time this is. And the other question that I have is, we are passing this, there are some code provisions that haven't been finalized yet. Are the fees wrapped into the code, into Lane Code?
There is mention that there are fees, and the fees will be determined by the director. So the fees are not enumerated, there's no amount that's listed.
Good.
And so it allows for us then to go through the fee adoption process separately without having to go back and amend the code.
And every time you need to adjust it by 2%, we don't have to go back and go through the
Right.
process. Very good. So, and that's Lane Code 9.090.030.
030 is where the outcomes are, so 9.090 is the overall erosion prevention code.
And once the ordinance is passed, other than the fee portion, the code is set.
Correct.
We're not changing the code after the ordinance has been adopted. So
Correct, to adopt the fees, we should not have to.
Other than, the normal code change process that we go through.
Right.
And can you refresh me, what is a code change process?
A code change process?
Lane code.
Well, I guess one example would be if DEQ did say, oh, you need to adjust.
Pardon me, I misasked that question. What do we do? How do we change the code?
If we have to change the code, I believe we have to come back before you all.
It is a public process.
Yes.
Good. I didn't know that. But really, I wanted to make sure that it is very, very clear that we are meeting all DEQ standards.
Correct.
And that and when the coastal watershed is looked at, then once again, we'll wrap it in to meet all DEQ standards.
Yes.
We're not shirking our responsibility there.
Correct.
All right, good, thank you.
Okay, if there's, Commissioner Trigger.
Thank you. Quickly, just appreciate the comment, but there is nothing prohibiting being more protective of the environment than what the DEQ's minimum requires. That is at the will of the board. The majority of the board gets to say whether we do better to protect our environment than the minimum standards the DEQ sets.
Correct, the board could
Thank you.
require more.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Sure, I move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Vice Chair to close the public hearing, seconded by Commissioner Buck. There's no need for discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye.
Is this an ordinance?
This is closing the public hearing.
Oh,
We have
I'm
a couple
sorry.
of new steps we have to do for the county council, so
Thank you.
bear with us on the new stuff here. All right, so it passes 5-0. Did I get your vote? Yes, 5-0. Thank you. The record is now closed for the public hearing. It's time for the board to deliberate and take action. The staff presents two options. Option one, if I could recommend one, I would be behind this as well. Move to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance number 2506 and order 25081217 as presented. Do I have a motion to that or something to that effect?
Yes, I do have a question, though, Council. We can't do both of those in one vote, right?
No, I would prefer you actually break them out if possible,
Okay.
because I want a roll call vote on the ordinance, and then the order can just be as you normally do orders, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
Chair, I move to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance number 2506 in a roll call vote.
Do I have a second? Vice Chair has moved to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance 2506, seconded by Commissioner Buck. Any discussion to the motion? Yes, Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair. And Commissioner Trigger pointed out that it is the board's purview to go beyond DEQ or any other regulations that govern the way we operate. And any subsequent board can do so through the public process if they find themselves smarter perhaps than DEQ, or perhaps if local conditions are different than the general conditions prescribed by DEQ. Okay, thank you.
Okay, before us is an ordinance, a roll call vote. Mr. Mokrehysky, would you do the honors, please?
Commissioner Seneca,
Yes.
Commissioner Trieger,
Yes.
Commissioner Buck,
Yes.
Commissioner Farr,
Yes.
and Commissioner Lovell.
Yes. Motion passes. Ordinance passes 250650. Looking for a motion for Order 25081217 as presented.
1207? We
oh.
have two different ones here.
Yeah, the order number 25081217 as presented. That's an order.
So I have a question because we have two different order numbers here, one in our packet and one in.
Say 07?
It does.
07, so the typo is not 17, it's 07?
And the packet, the actual order says 07?
Yes.
I do not know what to do in this case then.
On the board packet, it's listed as 07. On the ordinance updated script here for the procedure, it's 17.
What is in the actual order? I don't have a printed copy. I can find it real quick here. I care what the actual order says.
That's what I'm looking for in the packet.
It's late in the year for 07.
I
but
believe
this
that it's
came earlier.
07. I don't have, I have
It is
ordinance.
07 on attachment on the front, 07, 25081207 on the actual order,
Okay.
Then let's use that number. Thank you.
same as on the agenda.
So 07?
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm looking to approve Order 25081207 as presented.
Chair, I move to approve Order 25081207 in the matter of amending Lane Manual, Chapter 9, Section 030.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Buck to move passage of order number 25081217 in the matter of amending Lane Code. Sorry, dang it, there you go. Order number 25081207 in the matter of amending Lane Manual, Chapter 9, Section 030, LM 9.030. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Got that clear as mud. Goodwill, good stuff, good work.
Thank you for catching that.
Unintended.
Thank you very much for your persistence with that. Good job, everyone. Yeah, yeah, clear as mercury. Mud. Can we say that
Yes.
joke in public? That was good, Commissioner Trigger. Okay, well, thank you very much. Have a great
Everybody,
afternoon.
thank you.
Next on our agenda is the second Public Works item, which is our exciting Lane Event Center Master Plan Community Engagement Report. Almost feels like there should be a drum roll here, right, Mr. Bueller? Corey Bueller, our Lane Event Center Division Manager, and Jessica Bull, the Consor Strategic Planning and Communications contact, is with us, and looks like we have a couple other staff members. So, Mr. Bueller, I'll let you go ahead and introduce those and start when you're ready, sir.
I see up here.
Thank you. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, I'll go ahead and get started while they're working here. My name is Corey Buller. I'm the Lane Event Center Lane County Fair Manager. Appreciate this opportunity to come back and discuss something that's very important to us. We've got Jessica Bull from Consor Consulting here to go over our community engagement report. Also got Dan Hurley. Oh, there he is. Dan Hurley's joined us. Director of Public Works, Kelly Mason, who's our Sales and Events Supervisor. We've also got some guests and interested parties. We've got Bruce Weber from the Fair Board, Andy Vabor from Travel Lane County, and various other people. So lots of interest here, and appreciate them all showing up. So as many of you are aware, we have started and stopped this process several times over the years due to various reasons. Each effort that we have made has resulted in good data, good experiences, increased our knowledge, and I've really enjoyed this effort this time. So I just want to make sure that as we go through this, that the opportunity to discuss with our stakeholders, the public, the community, the neighbors, everybody was very valuable. We've learned a lot of things. We've confirmed some things that we had already assumed, but we also got some clarity on some other items throughout this process that we'll be sharing with you. It's often easy to forget the tremendous reach that a facility like ours has within a community. So I wanted to take a couple minutes just to point out a few things. This last year, over 145 events, rented spaces, which equates to over 430 rental days. The property and the location that facilitate a wide range of uses by clients and different entities that really reaches out to hundreds of thousands of members of the community. Those numbers don't include the over 200 days of webfoot volleyball and kid sports using our sports facility. It doesn't include the 90 to 100,000 visitors that visit the ice center each year. Doesn't include the folks that visit the museum with daily activities, school programs, special events. In addition to that, we've had 22 activations of the Egan Warming Shelter this year, and I believe there was 15 last year in 2024. We collected over 17,000 pounds of non-perishable food items, food for Lane County during the fair that we just had last month, which equates to over 14,000 meals. Last year, we collected over 2,300 pints of blood in the Pint for a Pass promotion. I don't have the numbers yet for this year, so we'll hopefully get those pretty soon. We've been a cooling center for a few days this summer, and the way things are going, that might continue. We've got hundreds of vendors that show up for home shows, trade shows, logging conferences, and the fair. We've provided past emergency support functions with Red Cross, animal shelters, multi-agency resource center. We've provided spaces for banquets and celebrations that support local charities, quinceañeras, dog shows, local markets, Piccadilly, Saturday Market, things like that. So, the list could go on and on. I could probably spend most of the time allotted to us and not hit everybody that uses one of our facilities, and I don't want to do that. But what I do want to also make sure to mention is all of those things that our clients and our patrons doesn't even cover the daily activities that we see as part of a neighborhood. We see people that are walking the path, spiking the paths, walking their dogs, charging their electric vehicles. We get the opportunity to engage with them as we go walking around the perimeter and the facility as well. So it's a tremendous facility, very proud of it, and the location where we're at gives us those opportunities. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Jessica to go through the community engagement portion of this report, and then hopefully we'll have time for some questions, some comments, and some feedback at the end.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for having us today. It's a pleasure to be back with you and talk about the master planning project and the visioning work that we've undertaken. So this phase of work wanted to re-energize and refocus the master planning project. As Corey mentioned, there are previous phases where a facilities condition assessment was done, a market demand analysis, as well as a document that analyzed some large ideas for return on investment. And we pulled all from those pieces as well. But from that, we know that many of the buildings and facilities, even as they are well taken care of by LEE staff, are in need of upgrades and renovation, and some buildings in need of reconstruction. So this really presents an opportunity for the community to reimagine parts of the LEC, build on its strength, and define a strategic direction and vision for the future. So the visioning process was framed as a community conversation and an opportunity to hear what people value about the LEC currently and their hopes and dreams for the future. So in our presentation today, we'll review the engagement program, the visioning work group, which was at the center of the process, share their recommendations, and explore unanswered questions coming out of this process. We'll also share the consultant recommendations for the next steps. There are also some key outcomes that were identified for this process, including a shared vision and community-informed site concepts, which we'll review when we review the recommendations as well. So the engagement overview, we used a number of methods to gather input. Stakeholder interviews, we spoke to invested parties that all have a different and diverse relationship with the LEC. Community visioning survey, it was a community-wide survey and it drew over 600 responses. We conducted 3 open houses, 2 in person and 1 virtual, and engaged over 100 participants through those. And then at the center was really the visioning work group, an advisory body that was convened that collaborated with the project team. We used a number of communication strategies to promote the project and promote engagement opportunities, including a dedicated website with updates and a comment form, social media, earned media and press releases, fact sheets and flyers, the Lane County e-newsletter, the LEC master plan project email lists, and also early on direct outreach to CBOs and community groups to make sure that they also knew about the process. In total, we had over 1,500 website visits. We had over 150 website comments. And between those and the engagement methods that we laid out, we heard from nearly 900 respondents in this process. So the engagement input and themes that we want to review. We had strong public support for maintaining the LEC as a flexible, multi-use venue that can adapt to the diverse community needs in the future. One thing that I want to say about the visioning work and engagement in general is no community has one voice or one perspective. Really what we seek to do in the visioning work is hear from individuals about what they care about, what their concerns are, and roll them up into broader themes. So when they look at the direction, they can see themselves reflected in it. Participants voiced a desire to retain some community-oriented programming and also strengthening the contribution to the local and regional economy and improve the functionality, aesthetics, and the financial sustainability of the LEC. And we'll see these themes are captured in the guiding principles and strategic priorities and site concept that the work group ultimately recommended. For a quick overview again of the visioning work group, it was a 16-member advisory body. They met for over 6 months, once a month, and they had interactive and deliberative meetings, and they considered community input, they articulated a vision, and they evaluated site concepts. They also produced the shared recommendations reflecting the broad aspirations of the Lane County community as they heard them, and also those guiding principles and strategic priorities. Their process included sort of a foundation setting where they really looked back at some of those foundational pieces of work for the master plan and understood the LEC as a whole. They considered community input and continued to refine their recommendations throughout the process. And they worked closely with the design team to evaluate those site concepts. And they ultimately delivered some clear and actionable recommendations. So at this point of the presentation, we'll start reviewing the work group recommendations as well as the consultant recommendations as outlined in the report. As we talked about the LEC, kind of what bubbled up to the top were these guiding principles and strategic priorities as a framework for future decision-making. And, they really balance between honoring the LEC's legacy and current role and positioning it to meet the evolving future. So the guiding principles, which really became sort of the North Star, were fiscally responsible and a community asset. We specifically heard from the community on that community asset piece. They wanted that piece reflected in this framework. And then the strategic priorities, which are split between the operations and programs and buildings and grounds. Operations and programs speaks to a thriving local economy and regional economic growth, a conference and convention destination, year-round sports and recreation, collaborative partnerships, active and healthy communities, gathering for community traditions, and emergency response. These were all through lines in community input that we heard. And then building and grounds, the multi-use modern facilities, neighborhood integration, and daily connection and use. We also shaped an articulated vision, which is at Lane Event Center, we envision a future where every event, gathering, and program enriches the lives of people across Lane County and those who visit, while fostering lasting memories and meaningful connections. And for us, a vision really talks about your impact in the world. And this vision felt like it reflected the spirit of the Lane Event Center. And many of the comments that we received and conversations we had throughout the engagement program, we heard about people coming to the LEC for their entire lives, as children, bringing their kids, now bringing their grandkids. And so hearing that history, I think, really made an impression on this process. So the next recommendation is the site concept. And really, the site concept was put forth as a tool for the engagement process so people could see the vision in a visual setting, and also, get a sense of some of the site constraints that may be there and opportunities. So the recommended site concept upgrades and modernizes the facilities. It improves circulation, including improving the site's entries. It introduces possible new spaces for both events and sports, and it enhances the outdoor areas in the green space. The work group put this recommendation forward with a few conditions. One is that the hotel piece, that a feasibility study would need to be done to really look at community benefit and neighborhood fit. And any public-private partnership would have to clearly retain and fulfill that community benefit piece. It was also approved with the idea that the expanded convention center is very important in the site concept, that really the convention center is the piece that will bring in many large shows, and it's a piece that should continually be invested in. So here you'll see the recommended site concept, and I'll briefly go through it. The orange boxes show potential new buildings. The yellow ones show renovation. We still have some parking lots retained, and green are the open spaces, along with the green circles are the trees. So there are a few key things to highlight here, and a few key pieces that we received, I would say, a lot of community input in. First is sort of the improved entryway, the green space, the circulation. We heard a lot from the neighbors, from people, as Corey mentioned, who walk and bike, that this is really a jewel in the middle of Eugene that could be upgraded for more welcoming day-to-day use as people kind of go through the site. We also discussed in the engagement process the need for increased and supported sports. So we saw a real and heard a real need for that. And that's in Building 5. If you look on the right-hand legend, you'll see some details there. And that's under Building 5, the multi-use, a flexible use building designed to accommodate events or fair programming. It could also be potential room for indoor track or increased sports area, as well as 12, which is the expansion convention center. That piece could potentially have amenities to support the conferences, events, and community, and be a possible hotel location. And as the work group thought through these pieces, they felt that the indoor sports facility and a hotel would align with the vision as articulated, but realized they didn't have the full information to say if those pieces should move forward. So what their recommendation does is ask for a feasibility study for those pieces for the board to consider. Out of this process came a number of unanswered strategic questions that we'd like to outline as well. As mentioned, the hotel feasibility and the multi-use feasibility studies, a full comprehensive funding strategy to be articulated, and a program and revenue analysis. Much of the work and conversation with the work group, visioning is very high level and it's aspirational. And oftentimes we want the details to see if we can sign off on something. So we talked about it in a way as, our process is bumping up against the programming or the events and the real details of how those would look. And so we wanted to make sure that those were captured. We have a whole, I think, 2 pages of the work group's feedback and next steps that they've articulated to be considered for future planning. And then we have some unanswered strategic questions that are also captured as we continue to think through the next steps. And finally, we have the consultant's next steps to carry the vision forward by addressing key questions and identifying these items that need to happen for planning, funding, and implementation. Conduct the feasibility studies. Our recommendation is to do that before the official and comprehensive master planning piece starts. Develop the comprehensive master plan. Establish a sustainable funding strategy and structure, and develop a phased implementation plan for that master plan. We also have some ongoing recommendations, which include taking care of those immediate improvements and ongoing improvements that the LEC needs, and maintain the community engagement piece. We heard from the community and the visioning work group that people would like that piece to be continued, and we certainly expect that piece will continue throughout the master planning process. And that was certainly a message that we shared with community members, that this is just one point in the overall phase to share comments and concerns and their hopes and aspirations for the site. Another piece that I wanted to mention is that in this phase and on this contract, we still have another engagement point with DHM Research. We had originally put it forward as some sort of statistical survey, which we could potentially use in other phases. And they also offer many other research tools that could help during the feasibility study or early parts of the master plan. And we're really envisioning those services as sort of a bridge between the visioning work and the other phases. Okay. Thank you for listening. The full report and all of the community engagement summaries are on the project website at lecmasterplan.org, and we encourage everyone to review them and please, send in comments.
Great, awesome. Any other comments, Mr. Buller?
No, I have more, but I think I'll pause and give you guys an opportunity to give some feedback, ask some questions, and see where we need to go.
Okay, good deal. Thank you for the presentation, very thorough. To the board, who wants to ask the first couple of questions or some comments?
Sure.
I can go first if you want. Go ahead, Commissioner Farr.
I'm really tiny and short because I think this is superb. I wish my job was as fun as yours. Great presentation. And, we've been, when was the fair rounds dedicated? Lane County Fairgrounds, what year?
Oh, boy. About 115 years, give or take.
That's close enough. I've only lived here 53 years, and I know it was there when I got here. So, that being said, we have 153 years of input of people experiencing the fair, and it's dynamic. The way it's used, the way that property is used today is significantly different, Corey, than when you took the job. I remember we did a master planning process, and it came up with some very different analyses and very different conclusions. In the meantime, we've had stadiums proposed, we've had indoor tracks proposed, we've had all kinds of different things proposed. And I'm glad to see us getting toward a point where the neighborhood in particular agrees with the consultants and with the staff and with all of the participants in the public process, that you have a plan to move forward with a couple of caveats. Feasibility studies need to be done regarding hotel, regarding multi-use sports facility. All good. I like seeing us getting steps incrementally closer to a final highest, best, current, insert the word current use of the fairgrounds, because 50 years from now somebody's going to look at it and say, well, let's change that again. But in the meantime, time's a wasting, and we have a wonderful piece of property in a place where there's not a lot of extra pieces of property laying around to do something very significant. I think you've taken a huge step in that direction. My congratulations to the many participants. My congratulations to Travel Lane County for your participation, because you've been involved all the way along as far back as I can remember. Because, the travel industry, the hospitality industry is no small part of what we're going to be doing there and what we do there. So I don't have any comments regarding, there's nothing I could put in there that you've not got in there, at least in concept, other than one little old thing. And that would be the Lane County Historical Museum. I didn't hear anything about that. What's the discussion surrounding that?
We didn't make any assumptions on the museum. These site concepts and ideas were intended to be visionary, evoke feedback as to what people are interested in and what they're willing to look at moving forward. I think it's my understanding that, some county staff and others have probably had discussions with the museum. Over the years, I've been approached several times by the past director to look at options for them, and I think they would be probably the first ones at the table if we had anything that was going to move forward or that might move forward, to give them an opportunity to weigh in on it, give feedback, and be part of whatever that process is.
And Corey, that's all I need from my questioning at this point in time. We have an interest in the future of the Lane County Historical Museum, whether or not it's in this footprint someplace. If you go to Philomath, you see what a historical museum and its storage facilities can look like. It's not going to happen here, and if we want that, it's not going to happen here. So when people come forward and say, well, in the master planning for the fairgrounds, you have an old building that is currently the historical museum, everything's molding and rotting in there, what are you going to do about it? Well, that's a different process, a different day, a different discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share that I had some really good feedback on the process. And it sounds like it's been a pleasure to work with you as a consultant. So thank you for doing such good work. And this has been going on ever since I became commissioner. We've had previous iterations, as Corey mentioned, stalled, started, stalled. But I'm really pleased with the concepts that have come out of it. I feel like it really incorporates a lot of the asks of various different parts of the community. And I'm not as involved as, say, Commissioner Traeger, because it's in her district, but I do hear about it from even outside communities who want to be able to benefit from this particular property in the middle of the Eugene Metro Center as well, because that tourist money that comes in is then divvied up and given to all these different areas in the community, and whatever we can attract there hopefully has rippling effects throughout the rest of the community. I've not shied away from being a fan of the potential concept of a hotel and expanded convention center space that could incorporate different kinds of multi-use facility inside, partially because I know that in order to fund many of these visionary concepts, you're going to need a revenue source. and a hotel is a revenue source that could help fund rebuilding or constructing one or more of these different concepts that we have in the park. I don't know of any other larger revenue-generating source that we would be able to get in order to fulfill this vision. As we see in the federal front, I see funding contracting there, not expanding. And so it might be really challenging to figure out how we will actually pay for any of this work. But that doesn't mean it should stop us from moving forward, because the people in the community really want to see something more viable going on, and they really want to see those buildings kept in good shape. They visit it, you see it every day, more so than even I. People enjoy being there. And we need to find a way to keep this gem within the city. I think it would be a huge loss if for some reason those buildings weren't kept up and we lose what assets we currently have there. So I really appreciate the time and attention, and wanted to acknowledge the really strong feedback that I got regarding the process.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So Jessica, out of the 900 respondents, the Lane, you're saying I can go to the laneeventcenter.com and find what their process was or what their thoughts were on what we should do? I didn't.
Yeah, so if, after each engagement point, we released a summary and comprehensive summary of that engagement activity. So for example, after the community survey, we released an executive summary and a full summary. If you look at that full summary, you can see all of the charts and all of the responses there, data. For written responses, we summarized them and put forward themes, but we also included a number of direct quotes so people could, understand how we're pulling those themes and sort of a cross-section of that input that was received. So we did that after each major engagement point.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, so while we were talking, I finally found it. You can read the full report and recommendations here. I'm guessing that's the link. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and if you go into the project library, all of their included as supporting documents to the report, and then each of them is also listed there on the website. So after each of the engagement points, if you went to that homepage, you would see a big thank you for taking the community survey, and then there would be a link to the summary and any data.
Excellent. And then I am really interested in that feasibility study with the hotel. We've talked about it a couple of times. So I'd be curious what, in that feasibility study, if we're talking about indoor sports facility, I'm assuming part of that study would be occupancy rates year-round instead of just the summer months where we're fine in Eugene during that, but we really do struggle through the winter months. So that would be a projected occupancy if we were doing, say we mentioned, or we heard earlier about volleyball, indoor soccer, et cetera, it would include all of those different sports coming into this facility. Because that would be great. I think there is a huge push for that. And then with the hotel possibility, what about, and I think I brought it up the last time, what about any on-site camping, say for 4-H type events and other events where people want to stick around and, I don't know, even at Piccadilly, I suppose, if somebody had a big booth set up, they might want to stick around through the night or something like that.
Yeah, we did bring that forth in one of the earlier iterations during the master plan process. It did not receive a tremendous amount of support at the time. We do have on-site camping during events and during the fair. They're temporary. We set up power and ask them to be self-contained, et cetera. But for the, expanded type of full service, didn't get a lot of good feedback through the community process and any of the feedback we got at the time.
Right. Well, I suppose that's probably the same as same lines as very seasonal as well. Camping downtown Eugene Fairgrounds in January is not going to be real hospitable, I suppose. Okay, well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Motion for you.
Great. Good to see you again. Thank you. And I also just want to acknowledge some of the members of the audience here today, including some board members from the museum, so I'll speak to that in a moment. Would you, just for fun, would you bring the slide with the vision statement up, and just to take us back, you know, the prompt for this being our next step was an assignment last year, I guess, that rather than this board directing staff to go forth and do X, Y, Z, was what does the community what is the community's vision for the grounds? And that was the purpose of this six months of work, and that's what you and we all who were on the steering committee and the community members who engaged with the process delivered. And so I'm very excited that we're at this stage, because now anything that we do, we know this is vetted by the community whose asset this belongs to, broadly of Lane County, also our community of vendors and partners and the immediate neighborhood as well. So I'm really glad we took the time to take this step. It can feel a little squishy, but I think just hearing my colleagues' responses and just seeing the report come all at once instead of being part of the process as it goes, to really see, oh yeah, this did what it was supposed to do, which was we took a really solid temperature read of where we might be going. And now the particulars, we get to fill them in. To that, the particulars, one of the things I think folks have always heard me say this is we can always do a better job of show and tell of what we already are doing. So when Corey reads out how many event days a year, how many visitors, the range of types of activities, people have no idea. The number of people that I hear say, well, it's only used 5 days a year when there's the fair. Like, well, so the more we can do to communicate just how active and alive it is, and then we want to develop it in a way where the aesthetics match that, right? Where you can tell it is an active and engaged and alive place. I think we also throw that word multi-use around a lot, and again, another opportunity to show and tell the ways in which multi-use has a lot of can be pretty granular. So we've talked before about, you know, the current convention center is a multi-use facility. There are multiple ways in which it gets used, and we've only expanded those recently with some of the improvements, the new flooring, so that you can schlep more stuff in and out, the new bigger doors, so you can bring equipment and infrastructure, temporary infrastructure in and out, the HVAC and bathroom improvements at the Wheeler Pavilion has increased the kinds of uses, the multiplicity of uses so there's a part of me that if I had to say one thing I don't love, it's that we call things a multi-use building instead of a sort of TBD building, because it's pretty broad. And so to the museum issue, and I've talked with Nancy and some others who are here today and some who are not from the museum, because the museum is not specifically cited or recognized as there shall be a museum here, a multi-use building could include a museum. A hotel could include a museum on its ground floor. There's any number of ways that could be incorporated. So by not specifically naming it doesn't mean we are explicitly excluding the museum being on the site, but we needed to free ourselves up a little more than to say that will remain. So that's an assurance, and also I think, as Commissioner Farr kind of implied, several of us have been in conversations over the years about the county's willingness and interest in being a good partner to help the museum find its right next, if not permanent home, whether that's on this campus or not, both from our interest to preserve the collection, but also because of recognition of the importance of that organization in the community. So I think there's still lots of opportunity for the museum and the county to work together through this. So I just want to make sure that's communicated. And And then I think, the staff, the recommendation, right, is to pursue next steps, which would be some feasibility study, kind of like has been discussed here, what, if a hotel, how big would it have to be, how many rooms, what kind of usage, what companion buildings and uses would have to be on site for the hotel to succeed. It's a little chicken and egg. But some of the other pieces that I know came up in our steering committee meetings with the neighborhood is like some hotels have a restaurant and bar that's open 24 hours, some don't have that, some have. So those are feasibility as far as how it bleeds into the integration with the neighborhood as well. So a lot of really interesting conversation at these steering committee meetings. So I'm excited we're at this stage. I think even just leveraging this presentation in this moment that we're at to share more about what we already are doing, the improvements we have made, the amount of use the facility gets, that we're not trying to plan because it's unused and we want to do things to make it used more. It is that it's used so much, we want to do things to make that user experience even better and perhaps expand on it and, of course, deliver back to the public a protection of that asset and that investment and improvement. So I think this gets us on the right springboard to go forth and do that. And I completely agree with Commissioner Buck that while we're in probably a resource-constrained environment, we still want to keep the planning ball rolling so we're ready when funding opportunities perhaps do arise. We don't want to wait until there's money and then have to do all the planning and figure out if that's the right way to spend it. So I see this as a great next step, very appreciative, and also just want to give an extra appreciation to the fellow members of the steering committee because all of them came with a very particular and unique and important perspective. We had lots of different types of users and community partners and other jurisdiction representatives, and I think everyone really, we truly were stronger for the whole of what each part brought. Nobody dominated the conversation. Everybody had something important to offer that other people couldn't have known without them being there. So well done seating the committee. Well done facilitating us. Thank you.
I know we're short on time, so I'm going to get right to it if I can. Thank you again for all of your hard work. I want to just say, look at our current vision statement that every event where our idea is to enrich lives while fostering memories and meaningful connections. Originally, the Lane Event Center had a four-pronged approach, and that was to enrich county residents by providing programs that support family, youth, and community values, and support the visitor and convention industry was number 2, and encourage local and small business number 3, and then providing a venue for community celebrations and events. So I don't want to lose focus going through the things that sound nice with new vision statements that the Lane Event Center is there for economic development. We're there to pay for ourselves and to make money. I mean, truly, that's what we're there for. So I want the public to know that that's my focus, and I appreciate the fact that we're going to keep that in line. I also came from the presentation away that there was a strong response for not only flexible space to meet various needs, but also there tends to be this like park-like setting experience when the fair tends to be idle of events. So I don't want to take our park director's Brett Henry's levy out of the way, but I'm wondering if there's any money that we could share a coexisting event, maybe park-like setting improvements to the Lane Event Center that could be also leveraged or partnered with the parks levy. So that was my first question about finding funds. But I want to also tell the board and the public too that this is a final report on the community engagement piece. It's one spoke in the entire puzzle or one piece of the puzzle. I mean, what we still haven't heard from is people that use the thing, vendors yet. We haven't heard their response. We haven't heard dreamers and developers and construction workers and all these kinds of things that they have to input for this idea. So I'm going to turn to Ms. Mason, the marketing director. Don't want to put you on the spot, but I do know that marketing directors tend to have a very visionary, expansive, out-of-the-box kind of thinking because they think in terms of if I only could do X, I could make some money and do this. And so I'm going to ask you, if I can, if you had a magic wand and could build a place or remodel something that is really lacking from a marketing perspective, what would that be?
At the Lane Event Center.
At the Lane Event Center. Let me preface that question because in my mind I'm thinking, as we looked at that map, building 11 next to the ice skating rink when it says a multi-use building and possibly a seasonal ice, second sheet of ice. The more I talk to the ICE folks, the more I think that that smaller investment could yield back right now a great amount of return on our investment based on what we would spend that could catalyze money for other investments if we were to take this piece by piece. So I'm asking you as a marketing person, if you had a magic wand and could do one thing that could make some money that would move us forward, what would that be?
One thing on this list, I'm interested in 12, but I think we need the expansion of the convention center or the hotel piece. But we need to do that feasibility study first to learn more about what's going to fit best there, size-wise, and how that will work with the community. But I think that's what's really going to drive a lot of events that we receive inquiries about, but we aren't necessarily able to host in the way that they need now. So that could be an immediate revenue source for larger events that we just can't accommodate, that go to other facilities that do have a hotel attached.
Wow, when you swing for the fence, you swing for the fence. That's a good one. Yeah, great. I think that's a great response, and I certainly appreciate that. Very good. The other thing that I want to do, just for sake of time too, is there any emergency response money still available out there? I know that the federal government's doing a lot of stuff, and I want to say that with this caveat, with this next question that joins that. Is there any possibility for us to operate or produce an idea that would be a private-public partnership? I mean, the hotel, we've talked about that a little bit, but what if something like that was on a different site? What if it attacked a couple of different things, like, say, a multi-use center, but it was on an existing site that could be rehabbed, but could be part of the Lane Event Center extended campus, if you will, rather than just focused on the 55 acres that we have, if something could be done quicker and for less money? Is that a possibility that we've even thought about in this process?
We didn't approach that necessarily in this specific process. That has come up in the past. Over the years, opportunities have come up where people have suggested public-private partnerships, and some of those have been off-site. So there has been some small work done to look at whether the fair could operate at a different location, whether there could be some other specific function like the horse center or horse riding at one location that's part of the fair but not necessarily located on the fairgrounds. There has been initial looks at those, but nothing specifically in this process. This was more about the community engagement, next steps.
It's kind of how the Olympics work. You don't get the swimming pool and the diving and the rowing all in the same venue, that's for sure. And then lastly, on these feasibility studies, do you think, I've done feasibility studies before, and they range in all kinds of ways. Do we have any consensus or idea what we're talking about if we're going to put together a couple of feasibility studies going forward, if we were to make some action on that?
Yeah, on the recommended next step, we do list out, looking at the program and revenue modeling, operations, but that they could also and should include the market demand analysis, financial projections, but consideration of local zoning and sort of the footprint of the building itself could also be looked at in terms of different square footages and different configurations. And so that this feasibility study should answer that question before going into the master planning process.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we've got a couple of feasibility studies in the $100,000 range. Is that kind of where we're talking for the public's kind of understanding? Okay.
Yeah, I would love to see how many we could, load in. I know there are some consultants that not only do, feasibility studies for facilities, but they do it for programming, they do it for business, and they include market analysis of different types of programming and different types of partnerships that might go into that. So I think the more that we can identify and get going together or in conjunction at the same time so that they could feed into that next step would be beneficial and keep the timelines down.
Great. Good, thank you. Commissioner Triggers, excuse me.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to provide some clarification, because thank you for saying, when you say we didn't ask business, if you look at the work group member list, which we didn't include, wasn't included as a slide, in fact, that membership was selected to get exactly that input. So our largest customers, our largest utilizers, in any ways you define that, including the home show, the logging conference, the ice arena folks, Travel Lane County Kids Sports. These were the 4-H program economic development managers for the city. These were the members of the steering committee. So we landed on this recommended site concept specifically with the input from business, economic development, current high utilizers of the site about what they need the site to do for them to continue to perform or accelerate what they do. So that's important. And secondly, I'm so glad you brought up emergency management and disaster response, because that was something that came up consistently. And of course, we as the county, that being one of our obligations, recognize the value and the importance of retaining this site and anything we do to it, maintaining that flexibility so that it can stay a core component of our emergency response program. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, good. So we should be closer to directing you to something very specific, it sounds like.
We're getting there.
Okay. Is there any other options that we have here in the discussion? Yes, Commissioner Farr.
One last quick question. Amazon Creek, of course, cuts right through there. And at some point, that's going to be renovated and the banks are going to be redone on that. Don't give me a long answer, but any discussion surrounding that?
It's my understanding that that's part of the City of Eugene's plan for that waterway. I have not seen anything specific or a timing on when that's going to happen. So I think most of our work has centered around what can we do to incorporate it, support it, enhance it, or, build it into whatever types of new things that we end up planning or renovations we do make. I will make one comment. I think, it's interesting that we were here on the day where they were talking about stormwater. With the recent fee increase by the City of Eugene, we're paying over almost $15,000 a month in stormwater fees for our grounds, and it's becoming quite the burden on our budget. So, working with County ECS in ways that as we make changes or we add some green space or find ways to divert some of that, we could see some immediate returns on our monthly bills as well as make other improvements that are supporting other functions. So those are the things that we're really going to be focusing on as we move forward, and that includes the Amazon.
And deeper discussion regarding numbers 8 and 10, which is overflow parking and enhanced green space south of Amazon Creek. Whatever happens with Amazon Creek, that may be a more usable area for the future. Not today, but for the future. Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we've got an option ahead of us that we can direct, is to direct staff to take some next steps in the master plan process and engage a consultant in creating more of a focused master plan and complete with analysis and review feasibility studies. So is that something of head nods? I'm seeing 5 head nods to continue on with doing that. So I would say that would be your next approach. So would this be something like hotel first specific or something more broader, and then we'll focus it later?
I think we'll try to put a little bit more detailed plan together of all these different things. Again, I think we'd like to accomplish as many as possible and as many as reasonable so that they can feed, that information and data into the final plan. So I think we'll come back with some information of more details.
Okay, super. Well, again, well done, and we hate to kick you out on the way, but we've got some time deadlines to come on, so we certainly appreciate it and look forward to that feasibility study. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Our next item on our agenda that we need to get done before our 2 executive sessions that we have scheduled this afternoon is item C, order number 25082612, in the matter of setting a public hearing for the surrender of 2 county roads to the City of Eugene. And Michael J. Bloom, our county surveyor and expertise for surrendering land, is here to give us the scoop. So, Michael, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here in the matter of setting a time and date for a public hearing for the proposed surrender of 2 county roads to the City of Eugene. The city has requested surrender of the roads pursuant to Council Resolution Number 5453, which was approved by the City Council on July 14th, 2025. ORS Chapter 373 requires a public hearing be set to allow testimony to be entered into the public record prior to approval or denial for the road surrenders by the board. Our office would like to propose a date for the public hearing be set for October 28th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. time certain. The proposed date and time will allow the surveyor's office sufficient time to provide public notification of the hearing in the manner and timeframes required by law. A full report of the subject roads will be provided during the public meeting. At this time, I'd like to turn this matter back over to you to consider the proposed date and time for the hearing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bloom. We're talking about Crow Road, County Road number 988, and the short portion of Green Hill Road, County Road number 36. And if I have a motion to approve this order for setting a date, time certain, I'm looking for that.
Chair, I move to approve order 25082612 in the matter of setting a public hearing for the surrender of 2 county roads to the City of Eugene for October 28th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. time certain.
Great, and a second.
Second.
Commissioner Buck, thank you. It's been moved by Vice Chair and second by Commissioner Buck to move and approve the order set forth for a time certain date of October 28th at 1:30. Is there any discussion to the motion? Yes, Commissioner Farr.
Just that I will be intermittently remote on that day.
Duly noted. Thank you. Anything else? All right, if there's no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, good deal. All right, in lieu of time, I think, we got one more item, our discussion item on the Land Conservation Development requesting rulemaking extended emergency RVs. And with us, we have Ms. Marianne Nolte, our Coordinated Services Supervisor in Land Management Division. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am Marianne Nolte. I'm with Land Management Division. I was the Holiday Farm Fire Permit Navigator, and I still work with Holiday Farm Fire survivors in that capacity. Today, I am seeking your support of rulemaking for the Department of Land Conservation and Development, or DLCD, and the Land Conservation and Development Commission, or LCDC. After the wildfires of 2020, those agencies created provisions to allow Holiday Farm Fire survivor, for any wildfire survivor of 2020 fires, to use RVs as their primary dwellings. And in Lane County, as many of you know, many Holiday Farm Fire survivors have taken advantage of those provisions, and many of those RVs are still in use. The provisions are set to expire in September of this year. Land Management is planning to send a letter to LCDC asking them to extend those provisions. And the reason I'm coming before you today is to both let you know that we are planning to do that and also to seek your support in signing a letter to include with our materials for LCDC. So just a little bit of background. The temporary provisions were created in 2021. They allowed for several expanded uses of folks' properties that were impacted by the fire. Those included emergency campgrounds, transitional housing inside unincorporated communities, temporary storage and staging sites for materials, and then the ability to use RVs. The original rules allowed for a 36-month timeline. That was then extended to 60 months, and we're at the end of that 60-month window now. In Lane County, by far the most popular of those expanded provisions was the ability to use RVs on people's property as their primary dwelling. We issued about 90 permits for those temporary RVs. Of those, 30 are on properties where the house has been rebuilt, so it's reasonable to assume that those RVs are not needed anymore, but that leaves about 60 where people may still be using those RVs. So we're planning to ask LCDC to extend the RV provisions for another 5 years. That lines up with the timing of other wildfire provisions, particularly House Bill 2289, which is very heavily used in Lane County. We've drafted a request for rulemaking to LCDC that is included in your packet so that you can kind of get the full history of what's going on. And as part of that, we'd also like to ask for this board's support of our request to LCDC by signing a letter, which I included in your packet. So that's the very brief history, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
All right, any questions? Yes, Commissioner Buck.
Not a question, just a urgency of support for this particular item. There are some people that are in the middle of building, and this deadline is sneaking up on them, and it would be quite detrimental if they were to have to exit their current living situation right now. We want to see them be able to finish up their homes or finalize whatever they need for their property rebuild. And this will be able to help facilitate this. And this isn't just Lane County. There are other fire-affected communities that are going through a similar discussion and also talking with DLCD about this. So it would be our voice along with other fire-affected communities as well, and I urge your support.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward, and fully in support, happy to approve it as written. Do you think, my only question is there any benefit or added advantage to including, to have this co-signed by our chair on behalf of the board and by Commissioner Buck as the commissioner representing the impacted community in the case of Lane County's advocacy for this matter?
I do think that would be helpful. That's a great amendment.
And then if we wanted to add a sentence explaining that, signed below, or I'd leave that to you, but that would be the only thing I think that would make this even better.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so do we have head nods on that direction to move that forward? I would agree, yeah. All right, we have 5 head nods. Well, great. Let's
Okay.
get that going on our desk so Commissioner Buck and I can sign that and get it on its way so we can have more than 284 homes rebuilt.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Marion. Appreciate it. All right, in lieu of time, I'm going to move Commissioner's business, item number 9, and all the following to tomorrow after our discussion for our public task event. We have 2 executive sessions that we need to go into that are going to take the rest of our afternoon. I'd like to read us into both those executive sessions before we recess. Board of County Commissioners will meet in 2 executive sessions. The first session will take place immediately following the recess of this meeting, and it is to conduct deliberations with persons designed by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. The session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602E, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. The second executive session will take place immediately following the conclusion of the first session. It is to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection and to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. It is held to pursuant ORS 192.6602F and ORS 192.662H, which allow the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive sessions. All other members of the audience are precluded from attending. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive sessions, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. Members of the news media are not allowed to tape, video record, or otherwise record an executive session, and verbatim notes are prohibited. No decision may be made in executive session. We will return to public session tomorrow, August 27th at 9 a.m. in the Board of County Commissioners Conference Room for our discussion on the Public Safety Task Force. We are recessed to executive session.